Would you long for the days of people not talking about religion or politics? What do you feel about that sentiment or that statement that you do not talk about religion or politics flat out?
Well, when my boss told me that, I laughed. I thought it was really funny because of how times have really shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And like it, and he was older too, so it was just funny. An older guy was telling me about like nowadays or whatever, like you kids or whatever. It's just get off my lawn stuff. So like that's always funny to me, listening to old people rant about stuff, listening to old heads rant about stuff. Um, I don't, I don't think I do, because I do think there's something to all of this uh anger and
Mm-hmm.
emotions. Like this didn't come out of nowhere, and there might be a missing link in American culture that nobody has been willing to look at
So you think this is
that
like
caused all of this. You
uh,
know what I mean?
okay, so you think it's probably like a pendulum swinging of after generations of like we don't talk about this to oh wait, now we need to talk about this.
Kinda, yes. I do believe that this didn't come out of nowhere. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think people came out of nowhere talking about, what I mean, sex politics, or like abortion rights, or like racism, sexism, whatever the case may be. I don't think flew that just fell out of the fucking window. You know what I mean? And people do want to act like that's how it is. You know what I mean? People want to be like, oh man, this just happened, it started happening, and it's like, no, there's a build up to this. Now, again, like, can I pinpoint when that was? No, I don't think I can pinpoint when that was. But I do think there's something has to shake
Mm-hmm.
from this hell that we're in right now, this hell world we're in right now. Something will come out of this, good or bad. And because of that, I don't actually long for the past, because the past is the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can go back to that, because in this hell, like, we're gonna have to figure something out. We're gonna have to figure out answers to all these questions we have. Maybe we did open Pandora's box or whatever, but we're gonna have to close it at some point, because um we have to get to a certain answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we're not gonna get to an answer
Do you think we
to
need to?
all these.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you think we need to learn certain things from the past to learn to get to that answer? And if we do, what are some of the lessons that we can learn from the past to get closer to that answer?
Um, I do think so. I do think you have to look in history is the cheat code for the future. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, I feel that.
Um, I I can't pinpoint one thing specifically, but I do feel like, and specifically American culture, the way civil rights was handled was the starting point of a lot of things that people disagree with now, in terms of how we treat minorities in this country. I do believe that the way civil rights was handled very was more sinister than people like to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that um a lot of black folks who went out of their ways, kind of to die for the mission. They didn't die for no reason, but there was a lot of I'm trying not to get assassinated here.
I understand.
I, I
If you
I
want
think
to
there was a
move
lot
on
of.
to a different topic, we can.
No. I like playing with my life like this.
Okay.
Um, I think that there was a lot of um things that went on during that time period that really put the black community in a box that the government now, or not only the government, but American culture now still has us in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I do think it did start with black folks in America. That's just me. Um, because I think the way they handled that situation through going from slavery to Jim Crow to the civil rights movement, I do think there is something in that that people don't talk about because it's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? If you ask a white person about slavery, they're like, "Oh, well, you guys are out now. Huh. Well, just you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, my grandfather was a slave owner. I wasn't a slave owner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact that like that part of history is so like people don't even want to talk about it, or people have such a limited knowledge on that part of history that like I do believe there is something in that, and if we look into that and make an effort of like putting that information out here, like okay, how did they get from slavery? How did they get to slavery from Jim Crow? You want to talk about the Emancipation Proclamation and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
but there was the whole period between Jim Crow and the Emancipation Proclamation. There was a whole period between that of history that nobody talks about. You know what I mean? There's stories of, or the main thing I used to hear because my dad was really into history was there's black presidents. There's black
Mm-hmm.
presidents, there was like black governments, there was Black Wall Street. That's a story that people don't really talk about a lot. You know, there was a lot of different stuff going on that is never you know looked at. Now I'm talking about black people because I'm black, so like that's what I know of. But there was Spanish people that lived here, there was Asian people that lived here, there was Native American people that lived here, and a lot of that history is not talked about. And there are large gaps in between the history books. You know what I mean? If you go to you go to school or whatever, it's like all right, it's fifth grade. What do they used to call it? Social studies. Fifth grade social studies. All right. Well, you guys remember World War One? Remember World War Two? Remember the Holocaust? Oh yeah. Remember Cold War? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now 9/11, and now we have a black president, and that's it. You know what I mean? It's like it's not really that deep. So I do think that if we stop being sensitive about our own history, I do think that there are ways we can nip a lot of things right now in the bud. Even if it is correcting past wrongs, you know what I mean? Even if it is, we have to go back and or we have to take care of things that have carried over from Jim Crow or you know um you know uh early late 80s stuff. If we have to nip that in the bud now, that's what we have to do. You know what I mean?
Who do we? I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I have is questions, but I have nothing but questions. But who do we trust with history? Since now in today's time, everything is just being politicized when it comes to the sciences, like I said, history, what's good and what's not good for the country, our bodies, um, spiritually. Like, who do we, but within this certain confines of history, since that's what we're talking about now, is there a certain institution or can there be an institution that the people can trust in because everybody has their own time. Everybody has a certain amount of time. They have a certain amount of care to put into certain things in the world. Um, I guess I'll leave it at that. If you need me to elaborate, I can, but I feel like I've
Let me think.
spoken enough.
I think, yeah. So essentially, you're asking. This is me trying to piece together in my head. Essentially, you're asking: is there someone we can go to make sure we're getting all the history
Mm-hmm.
of the world? I,
Or at least like
or at
of the
least,
world seems like a little bit too broad, but maybe
okay,
just
okay, but like history in
like
kind
let's
of like
like specifically like Black history or American history.
American history.
Yes.
Yeah. Um. Well, I'll say I'll go to hell before I trust a politician. So there is this level of like I want to say no
Hmm.
immediately because I don't think the American government is capable of doing that. If there was a government to do that, it would probably be the American government,
The
not
Ministry of,
for any like
yeah, the
say
Ministry
that
of
one more
Truth, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, or the Supreme Court of Truth or whatever,
Hmm.
whatever, whatever it is. Like I think, if there was a government to release that, it probably would be the American government, not for any like nationalism, like oh we're the best kind of thing. It's more so like we've somehow managed to turn our dirty laundry into money,
Hmm.
and a lot of countries don't do that. If you notice, you know what I mean. Like you never hear China talk about Tiananmen Square, you know?
Right. Right.
So I do think that if there was a country to put that in place, it would be the American government. But I do think we'd find a way to corrupt it too. So in a
Yeah.
way, what I am asking for is sort of a moot point anyway, because I don't think there is a way to make it happen. However, though, I do think that if I'll say black people, if we kind of just did our own research in that sense or whatever. Now there's a lot of there's a black people lie too, so there's a lot of shit in
Mm.
certain thing on certain areas where you'll see stuff that maybe isn't completely true
Yeah.
or not or is biased
Hmm.
or whatever. At the same time though, I do think that like if black people kind of made that a priority, I do think we can learn a lot from that. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, there was a Black Wall Street, and it was burnt down to the ground, and you don't see that in history. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
so it's like I don't think that we're it's impossible. Obviously, what we'd have to do nowadays is we just have to be more careful about what sources we trust, even
Hmm.
if it's from our own community. You know?
Yeah. As that one saying goes, men lie, women lie. Uh, the only thing that doesn't lie are numbers, but people lie about that.